On Friday the 13th, an acquisition by Social Rights Ireland happened, coinciding with Focus Ireland's Sleep Out fundraising event. A spotlight was shone on apartments in Pimlico that Focus Ireland and Dublin City Council have had the right to use for homeless and housing supports. Without warning, on Monday lunchtime, occupants were suddenly confronted by Garda armed support unit. An illegal eviction unconstitutionally violated the basic rights of people inside who had set up a home. No eviction notice was served, nor was there any attempt to discuss the issue in a civil way. No crimes had been committed here, other than the crime of seeking shelter.
Good day's work, lads, yeah?
My name is Róisín. I'm living in Dublin and I'm involved with the movement Social Rights Ireland. So this is called Pimlico Tavern and it has a large number of apartments up above. It's been lying empty for a number of years now and the apartments are in really great condition. We just felt it was an absolute injustice for a building that could house so many people comfortably, between 30 to 60 people we reckon, and we felt like it was just very important to show that it was here and it could be utilised, and it wasn't. And then whenever we checked the different registries online to find out ownership or whatever, we were really shocked to find out that Focus Ireland had planning permission to create housing supports on the site. It was very difficult to find out who owned the actual building, which part of the site was going to be available to Focus Ireland, trying to find out from this very vague, ambiguous information, exact, precise details. It was time consuming and we just said, let's go ahead, do it and occupy the building, which coincided with Focus Ireland's big sleep out to raise money for Focus Ireland.
On Friday the 13th of October, Focus Ireland staged a national fundraising sleep out event. At the same time, a sleep-in happened in a building which Focus Ireland has had the right to use for a number of years. Everywhere, people are living and dying on the streets outside empty buildings. Empty buildings owned and protected by homeless charities or private property companies. The council, in hand with Focus Ireland and other supposed social services, have commodified homeless people into an industry. It has never been clearer. Homelessness is a state policy. It is simply unjust. We must stop normalising charity and homelessness. There is space for everyone.
A couple of people came by to get information about, how could they stay here. One person was facing an imminent eviction and they just were in desperate need. Other people who made inquiries had been in emergency services and they just couldn't believe that this existed and that it was so clean, lovely, safe, warm and well equipped compared to the emergency services. Then on Monday at lunchtime, a surprise attack, I would call it, whenever the Garda arrived and armed support unit as well. It was just seemed like this mass invasion all of a sudden without warning and no negotiation or talking to anybody inside. I got a text from an occupant inside. He just took a photograph and said, the police are here, we are anticipating an eviction. And then it just seemed to escalate really, really quickly. By the time I got here, the roads were cordoned off, pavements were cordoned off, there was a fire engine and an ambulance. It was just swamped, with emergency services and the police. They were battening down the front door. There were more than 20 that I counted, and that wasn't counting along the other streets, that were being managed for being cordoned off. So this has all been boarded up. See, it's where the guards came. Their protection gear looked really sort of violent, like there was something really horrendous happening inside, and they battered down this door. It took them a good while to get in. Some of the people who were inside staying were in different positions in the building. So one person was on the rooftop and shouting "Homes for all," making himself visible. And then another person was on a lower rooftop, probably on the first floor, looking really scared, really frightened actually. Another person moved to the front of the building, I suppose the reason being that he felt it wasn't safe to be approached by the Garda if he wasn't visible to the public. It's very important for him to make himself visible to the public so that the Garda wouldn't be violent to him, wouldn't hurt him or harm him. The person who made themselves visible to the public actually tied themselves to the first balcony. And you can see here, in order to get the occupant who was resisting eviction down, the guards brought mattresses with them. Like, you couldn't make it up. Talk about irony, bringing mattresses. And clearly, you have no issue with dumping or getting rid of mattresses that, God's sake, like, people could be sleeping on inside. The person on the rooftop says that he was viciously attacked and that torture methods were even used to extract information out of him. And it was like really bizarre things like, where are the flags and where are the Palestinian flags? You kind of wonder how, this kind of information was super important, that you would have to apply really vicious torture methods to find out where a flag is. It's just very bizarre and very wrong. The road was cordoned off, even the pavements were cordoned off to local residents, and then it was cordoned off there at that roundabout where there's a little statue, and then it was pushed right back to the far house there on the left hand side. So the people inside, were hemmed in, and people trying to get in, children coming home from school. I met a young girl, schoolgirl, who was really upset, and English wasn't her first language, so she had great difficulty understanding what was happening, and nobody cared about how she got home. Nobody came forward and presented themselves as a landlord. Nobody knocked the door. Nobody said, "I'm the landlord. What are you doing on my property?" No. An illegal eviction, it feels illegal to us because it's a civil matter, and civil matters should be dealt with between landlords and tenants. There was no need to involve the police. It was also illegal the way that the people inside were mistreated, not to mention the people outside, some of the people who were just watching, some people who were supporting. So it was a very violent, aggressive attack. And I mean, that's illegal. If there's no immediate threat posed, nobody inside posed a threat. Nobody was aggressive. Nobody was fighting back. There was just no opportunity at all to engage in a civil way and talk about what was happening. No dialogue whatsoever. The reason why we are doing things like this is because in the last couple of years there have been acquisitions of empty buildings, and groups that have moved in and occupied empty buildings have called for others to do the same, to highlight, number one, the number of empty buildings that are lying vacant, but also to show that many of these empty buildings actually are linked to charities, and this is an injustice. I mean, the housing crisis is an injustice. Look at today, I'm standing here. It's really difficult to stand. I'm clothed, I have an umbrella, it's freezing, but I'm not living on the street. So it's absolutely wrong, and it's becoming normalised when people, just stepping over human beings who have no dignity. And not only are they homeless, they're being stigmatised for being homeless. And I can't live with myself in a world, it's not the world I want to belong to, or the country that I want to be, living in, to just think that this is normal and acceptable and not do anything. We also believe that the housing crisis is a man-made crisis. It is the result of a neoliberal society that puts greed before need. Then you start to question the whole idea of charity, which really on the surface looks like a lovely thing, but it's not. It's not helping. If it did help, the numbers wouldn't be rising. And it's not just about houses either and homes. It's about supports and services. It's about social care, and it's about the full package. You can't just put a roof over somebody's head and leave them, to be. There are many other needs. And then there's the invisible homeless too. And it's not just about people literally on the streets. There are thousands of people, I think it's 500,000 young adults who are still living at home with their parents. They're not counted as homeless because of a roof over their heads, but they're trapped as well. And everybody has a right to a home, their own space, without living in cramped conditions or without apologising for being there. And you have your right to privacy, right to make your own food, your right to have whoever you want in. Social Rights Ireland is a movement that is about protecting rights for everyone, everywhere. And housing rights is just one small aspect of the broader picture. Why did we start with housing rights? Because really it's very hard to tackle other social issues if people don't have a home. But once you have a home and once you have that stability, you're in a better position to have a better quality of life. You think about starting off, I have a child who's 8 now, but it's hard enough having a child whenever you don't have a lot of money. I mean, if a child's life starts off in a precarious situation where they're being evicted from a home or where they're living in emergency accommodation, that's a trauma from birth. That's a trauma from their very early years. Those are the formative years. They're the most important years. And whatever happens in those years, is retained in the body and it affects the mind. So what kind of a next generation are we creating if we think that it's acceptable to cram children, women and children, into these really hostile, cramped conditions? It's Dickensian. And we're creating even more troubles and problems down the line. So that's why it's social rights rather than just housing, because it's looking at all of the other issues that create an unjust society. I believe in this movement, otherwise I wouldn't be here. The reason why is because it's really grassroots. It's from the bottom. We have no money, we have no premises, we have no backing, we have no financial backing, we have no famous person endorsing us. We are really, really struggling. But that's really important because there are people in our group who are homeless, who are seeking asylum, fighting all sorts of injustices. So they know. And you have to sometimes, unfortunately, no matter how empathetic you are, sometimes it's not until you hit rock bottom and you experience oppression yourself that you can fully appreciate how awful the system is and how easy it is to be crushed. You know what was lovely on Monday? That it wasn't just, social rights. It was a number of groups coming together. And so there were people from RHL, there were people from Catu, there were people coming out of their houses there on the street, coming out of the flats. There were locals just showing solidarity, coming together, and you didn't need to name what organisation you were with. There was just a real sense of coming together. So I kind of think that there needs to be more pulling together, especially on the left, more unification, more realising that we as human beings have more in common than we have differences, and we can bicker about the things that make us different till the cows come home, but that only stalls our action and creates conflict, and we cannot employ the tactics that the people in power would love to see us use and divide and conquer. We have to be more unified. We're all humans at the end of the day.